Hey guys, and welcome to the last Art 1 video of 2020. How exciting that we are finally here. This video is going to cover the detailing and hair of your self-portrait, so kind of all the little things that's going to really make this look like you. First things first, you're going to want to erase all of your guidelines that you had made to kind of place the different features on your face. You'll also want to go back and fix those lines that you erased through so that you have your continuous picture kind of figured back out. Get those lines redrawn so that you know where everything is going and you're not missing out on any details. Remember that this is also a good time to kind of copy paste your drawing on top of your reference photo so that you can see if your proportions are correct. That is covered under step 3 on your Google slide presentation, so remember to check in on that and give it a shot. I did this with mine. I made some adjustments to my cheeks and to my hair and even to my eyebrows, and that all certainly helped. So, you know, you're going to see me doing a couple different things here. I'm going to start and stop the voiceover as necessary. You definitely do not want to be drawing a very harsh hairline up at the top there where you can see your hair coming out of your head. After a certain point it does overlap behind your forehead and your cheek, but it'll be a lot more realistic if you don't just draw a straight line across, right? So that is something to consider as you are looking at how to kind of change and fix your work here. Next we are going to look at the eyebrows. You can see me sort of demonstrating here that your eyebrows should be not just a solid thing, but a bunch of lines kind of put together in a V shape, looking like they're overlapping. My reference photo is a little bit small here to see that detail, but if you zoom in on your own eyebrows, you'll see that they all kind of go in the same direction towards your ear, and they work their way back. I would highly recommend drawing the individual hairs and layering them in this way versus just filling it in solidly. You're going to get a much better, more realistic result by doing the individual hairs. And it is a smaller surface area, so it's not going to take too long to do successfully. I did not erase my kind of guidelines there, which I could have done and probably should have done in order to make these look a little bit less like they were just filled in or drawn over. Another good thing to note is that you can always go back and erase the exterior of these lines. You don't need to just commit to everything that you see. It's a really good way to get the shaping right, and eyebrows are very expressive of who you are as a person. That part right there, I just noted that using your pencil eraser will help a little bit with getting into finer details. And so now starting here, we're going to be looking at hair. Remember that you have other videos that you can watch that are be a little bit more relevant to your own hair type. I will be going over my own hair type, which is curly hair, but there are some universal things that you can try as you're working on your hair. The first would be to keep track of the direction that your hair is going. More likely than not, if you have longer hair, all of the strands will be more or less heading downwards. If you have shorter hair, maybe it's going more up and out. But for my purposes, all of my hair will kind of be pointing down towards my shoulders. And I'm also, rather than drawing each individual strand, using that tortillon stump to give myself a good base of tone there, to which I can then put more lines over top so that I get the texture of hair, but my tone is a little bit darker to reflect the darker color of my hair. This will work with a blonde hair color or anything lighter or even anything darker. You just have to put down more or less graphite in order for it to be representative of you. At this point I did notice that my hair was a little bit too indented there, so I just filled it in and made it look a little bit more rounded, and that really helped to reinforce the proportions of my head and made it make a lot more sense. And so I'm just going to continue going through this process. If it's a lighter strand of hair, such as if it's a curl that's kind of coming towards the viewer, I will put down less graphite before I blend it in order to make sure that it has the right amount of tone there. And then finally, you can get an even lighter strand by using your eraser over the top of the pencil that you just put down. That is a really, really great final finishing tool to make your hair look very, very realistic without having to draw every single strand. And it's fairly easy to do. You just need to look at your hair and decide where those lighter strands should go. So at this point, it's just important to remember that you should be working on your hair in sections. If you have longer hair, or even if you have shorter hair, work on individual locks or strands at a time so that you can create separations. Even if it's not exactly the same as the photo reference that you're using, it'll help you have hair that actually looks like hair versus it just being a blob that's stuck to the sides of your head. So you'll see that I put in dark areas for the curls that are going backwards in space, as well as kind of leaving lighter spots for the curls that are coming towards space. And even if it isn't always something that you see in the photo, I will just kind of adjust things as necessary to separate the locks from each other. Also, doing those little flyaways on the outside of your hair will add a whole lot of realism to your final drawing, because for the most part a lot of people have those kinds of little hairs, and so having them included is really, really a nice touch. And so at this point, I am starting to work on the face again. In general, even if you don't see every single shadow that you may be putting down onto your page, it's a good idea to just kind of bump up a couple of those. As you can see, I am working on the mouth right now. Remember that your jaw curves backward into space, so if you did draw your teeth, and even if you just have your mouth closed, you're going to want to have some depth of color there, or have a darker tone to represent either your lips meeting or to represent your teeth going backward and curving around your face. And next I did start working on my eyes. I have brown eyes, so I darkened that tone up a whole lot. If you have a blue eye, you may want to leave it lighter, but for the most part it will help with the realism factor if you have them a little bit more similar to what you see in your picture. And then I just was working on eyelashes and getting some of those smaller details hashed out. I ended up kind of muddying that area and having to erase it, as it was looking a little bit dark and weird. But as I worked through that, I did start to work on the glasses, which helped to make the entire thing kind of come together. Another good way to get a little bit of realism in this would be to kind of lightly erase the lines of the lips that you've drawn and just shade in where the darker color of your lips is. You don't always have such a harsh line between your skin and your lips, so by just having a little bit of that darker tone, it'll make it slightly more subtle and also more realistic. And you can see as I'm working across my page here that I have a lot more realism on the right side of my face as it's drawn versus the left side. It's going to end up looking a lot more like me. And this is also when I just add a couple more little areas of shading and kind of readjust those eyebrows. That arch that I had there was a little bit too pointy to be reflective of my actual face, but it's very easily changed with just a little bit of erasing. At this point, I think that the glasses look very slightly off, so I just use a flat, straight tool that I have and do a very small adjustment. Remember, the glasses and anything that's kind of attached to your face is more than likely going to be exactly symmetrical with what's ever on the other side, so the closer you can get one side to look like the other, the more realistic you will get. I also filled in the black of the glasses so that I could kind of use that as my darkest tone gauge to see how dark the things are around those glasses and if I'm getting everything kind of consistently to the same tone versus other stuff around it. And now finally, for this portion of the video, I'm just continuing to work on my hair. I am going to leave this in as it's helpful if you have this hair type. Obviously, if you are working with a different video, then at this point you can just hop on over to that. But the hair I did on the left side was the last thing I did because I'm left-handed and I didn't want to get it smudgy. But you'll see me use my eraser pretty frequently to get those very light tones, and then use my tortillon stump to get dark and medium tones, while also going back over and just adding some lines with my pencil to make it so that there are some strands of hair that are still visible and some that just kind of fade into the grouping. So that is it for the challenge that is portraits. I hope that this is helpful and that you guys are feeling comfortable with this. I am pretty proud of what I managed to complete, so I hope that you guys are too.